This essay is titled Lilith, the Equal of Adam, and Sex is Day 7 of Creation. It compares the Genesis creation with the Babylonian Enuma Elish, the 7 tablets of creation from the library of King Ashurbanipal, dating from the 7th century BC, with the Gurdjieff creation. The similarity of the 7 days of creation in Genesis and the 7 tablets of the Babylonian creation, Enuma Elish, leads one to suspect that when the Jews were captives in Babylon in 587 BC, the Hebrew Genesis story was influenced by this story. The first day of Genesis and the first tablet of Enuma Elish are remarkably similar. After that, the similarities end except for creation of mankind at around the 6th day and rejoicing at the end. There is also some overlap in the days or tablets which I have attempted to correct. Here is a review of the themes in the 3 creation stories. The Genesis God uses light to create 2 equal and opposite forces, day and night, from the chaos, similar to the Sumerian word Tiamat, to create 7 days of creation with humans to worship him. The Babylonian primeval god Apsu is separated from the god Tiamat to create 2 equal and opposite gods, Lamu and Lahamu, whose progeny replace the primeval god and defeat chaos, Tiamat, in battle to create the world under a supreme god with humans to serve the gods. The Gurdjieff creator, Endlessness, from the Holy Planet Purgatory chapter from Beelzebub's Tales, separates the Etherochrilno into active force and passive force to create the middle by altering the law of 7 to create the enneagram that allows humans to sustain his kingdom and to join him in heaven. It is not surprising that the number 7 is chosen to describe creation, as it is considered a sacred number. But what must be remembered is that the musical octave contains 7 notes, with the 8th being the completion of an octave higher than the one beginning. If you play 7 notes from lower to higher, it becomes obvious that the progression of the notes begs to be completed. So do, re, mi, fa, sol, la, ti must have a higher do. The Gurdjieff enneagram above describes an octave that begins at do and then comes around to the higher do. The higher do is the completion, and thus do, re, mi, fa, sol, la, ti must complete at the higher do. So it is for the Eightfold Path of Buddha, or the Lord's Prayer, when kingdom, power, and glory are included. If creation is meant to be a complete octave, why is it that God rests on the 7th day, or is honored on the 7th day, at the note T? Should there not be one more day to reach completion at the higher do? If day 8 should be the true day of completion, when God rested, what happens on day 7? There are 2 clues for this: the Adam and Eve story and the Gurdjieff Food Octave. The Food Octave describes how food is digested in human organs with the result of a completed human and/or a child. I have now related the 7 organs to the 7 days, and this is in Beelzebub's Tales, chapter 39, page 786 to 781. And if now, my boy, you satisfactorily grasp the succession of the process of transformation of cosmic substances by means of being apparatuses, into which these cosmic substances enter as first being food, then at the same time you will approximately understand everything concerning the chief particularity of the sacred law of Heptaparapashanak, as well as the processes of evolution and involution of the other higher being foods. And here I have shown the correspondence between the organs and the creation days. So at do is food in the stomach, and I'm relating this to creation day 1. Light from dark matter, photons build matter. And Re is the digestion in the duodenum, and I'm relating this to E equals mc squared, the concept of matter and energy, and physical law. And Me, liver, I'm relating this to chemical reactions. And Fa, cerebellum, I'm relating to nuclear binding. And Soul, cerebrum, I'm relating to complex organisms. And La is harmonary, which I had to make up because Beelzebub's Tales is missing the La, and this relates to humans. And T is the sexual center, relating to procreation, the snake, Satan, Enki, the tree of knowing. And Do is the completed human, the completed creation. From this we see that the note T is sexual energy, which corresponds to the 7th day. Humorously, the 7th day should not be the day God rests, but the day of humans' rest, as in sleep together. Look at what is next. Adam and Eve discover sex, knowing, from the tree of the knowledge of good and evil. Thus I am moving God's rest day forward to day 8. I hope that God will forgive me, but the Sumerian Babylonian gods may not be as tolerant, since they started a war to have more peace and quiet, and also caused the flood because of the clamor of the humans. You might ask, does this not mess up the calendar week? Actually, no, for day 8 of the previous week is the same as day 1 of the next week. It is exhausting to think about, but this sleep day does help those, like me, who cannot get out of bed to go to church. It does fulfill God's command to be fruitful and multiply. So now, having connected the 2 Genesis creations, the apparent confusion of the 2 stories must be addressed. Genesis chapter 1 contains day 1 through 6. The next chapter contains day 7, where God rests. But he does not do so, but continues to create a male and female named Adam and Eve, capable of having sex. The first creation does not talk about sex, and from a spiritual standpoint, man is equal to woman. But the Jewish scholars, seeking to reconcile the 2, imagined Adam with a female called Lilith, and this is in Talmud, Urban 100b and Niddah 24b, with her image derived from the Sumerian Inanna, often depicted with long hair and wings. The story is elaborated into Lilith refusing to be subservient to Adam as just his rib. The patriarchal Jews, when they adopted the Canaanite god El for Jehovah, had already dropped his queen and wife, Asherah, by turning her into a tree or a broom. Note the witch reference. For instance, in Deuteronomy 16:21, it says, "Do not plant for yourself an Asherah tree next to the altar of Yahweh that you make for yourself." Of course, they would make Lilith into the queen of the demons. The amazing significance in the first chapter of creation is that Adam and Lilith were equals as male and female. Their progeny would be free from the so-called original sin. No progeny are mentioned, but one might surmise that their children would be those androgynous beings that we call angels, who possess a fully developed spirit body. Perhaps this is what Beelzebub talks about in Beelzebub's Tales 39:7-7-3 of Matna, Spirina, and Okina, who conceived by physio-co-organic attraction. In the second creation, Adam's wife Eve, in Genesis 2:21-22, is created from Adam's rib, a euphemism for the missing bone in the penis compared to other animals. This story must have been borrowed from the Greek poem Theogony of Hesiod, from 650 BC, telling of the birth of the Titans and the birth of Aphrodite, being born from the white foam of the genitals of Uranus, severed by his son Cronus, that were hurled into the sea. So next we get to the spreadsheet of the Genesis story, compared to the Sumerian 7 tablets of creation and Beelzebub's creation tale. The original day of rest or exaltation is moved to day 8, and the tree of knowledge of the good and evil in Genesis replaces it as day 7. Each day is introduced as notes do, re, mi, fa, sol, la, ti of the Gurdjieff Food Octave for comparison purposes. So here we have day 1, do, light from dark matter, food in the stomach from Gurdjieff's Food Octave. So we have Genesis 1, 1-5. In the beginning God created the heaven and the earth was without form and void, and darkness was upon the face of the deep. And the Spirit of God moved upon the face of the waters, and God said, "Let there be light," and there was light. And God saw the light, that it was good, and God divided the light from the darkness, and God called the light day, and the darkness he called night, and the evening and the morning were the first day. Now tablet 1a says that salt water, Tiamat, the deep, combines with fresh water, Apsu, to create the mode of fertility, Lama and Lahamu, and these are all gods. When on high, which is the reason for its title, Enuma, Elish. When on high, no word was used for heaven, nor below was the firm ground called by name. Primeval, Apsu, was their progenitor. Matrix, Tiamat, was she who bore them all. They were mingling their waters together. Then were the gods formed. Within these two, Lamu and Lahamu were brought forth, were called by name. And this is Beelzebub's Tales 39, 748-9. And now this relates to the protocosmos, having the radiation of Theomertomologos, or the word God. In the beginning, when nothing yet existed, and when the whole of our universe was empty, endless space, with the presence of only the prime source, cosmic substance, ether or Krilno, our present great and most holy Son Absolute existed alone in all this empty space. Our Creator already decided to change the principle of the maintenance of the existence of His most glorious being. He actualized the greater change in the law of Heptaparapashanak. He altered the what are called subjective actions in the 3 of its stopenders. In one he lengthened the law-conformable successiveness, shortened it in another, and in a third disharmonized it. Day 2, Re, which I'm saying is equivalent to E equals mc squared, and digestion in the duodenum in the Gurdjieff Food Octave. Or one could say the interaction of positive and negative creates matter, firmament, and energy, waters. So Genesis 1, 6-8. And God said, "Let there be a firmament in the midst of the waters, and let it divide the waters from the waters." And God made the firmament, and divided the waters which were under the firmament from the waters that were above the firmament. And it was so. And God called the firmament heaven, and the evening and the morning were the second day. Day 2 of Enuma Elish spans tablet 1, 2, and 3, showing the cause of a war, the war itself, and its final battle that establishes a new kingship. And tablet 1b, from Lamu and Lahamu were spawned the gods who were disrupting to Apsu and Tiamat. The divine brethren swarmed about, confounding Tiamat. In their uproar grew ever more loud. Apsu made ready to speak, saying to her Tiamat in a loud voice, "Their behavior is noisome to me. By day I have no rest, at night I have no sleep. I wish to put an end to their behavior, to do away with it. Let silence reign, that we may sleep." When Tiamat heard this, she grew angry and cried out to her spouse. She cried out bitterly, outraged that she stood alone. "What, shall we put an end to what we created? Their behavior may be most noisome, but we should bear it in good part." It was Mummu who answered, counseling Apsu. Like a dissenting vizier was the counsel of his Mummu. "Put an end here and now, father, to the troublesome behavior. By day you shall have rest, at night you shall sleep." Ea was aware of all this and was privy to their plans. He worked it out, he set it up, a master plan. He contrived it to be surpassing. His incorruptible magic spell, he recited it and brought calm into the waters. He made Apsu sleep. He was put in a deep slumber. He tied him up and he killed him, Apsu. Ea and Damkina, his wife, dwelt there in splendor. In the midst of holy Apsu was Madhu born. Ea, his father, begat him. Damkina, his mother, was confined with him. Tiamat was roiled, churning day and night. She raised up Kingu. It was he she made greatest among them. Leadership of the forces, command of the host, arming contact, ordering the attack, chief strategist in warfare. She gave him the tablet of destinies. Tiamat assembled her creatures, drew up for battle against the gods her brood. Thereafter Tiamat, more than Apsu, was become an evildoer. She informed Ea that she was ready for battle. She deployed serpents, dragons, and hairy hero men, lion monsters, lion men, scorpion men, mighty demons, fish men, bull men. And now Tablet 3, Ansha's visor, Gaga, arranges a meeting of the council. Marju came forward, the sage of the gods, the son of Ea. He was resolved to go against Tiamat. He made a bow, appointed it his weapon. He mounted an arrow, set it on a string. He took up a mace, held it in his right hand. Bow and quiver he slung on his side. Thunderbolts he set before his face. With raging fire he covered his body. Then he made a net to enclose Tiamat within it. He deployed the four winds, that none of her might escape. As for Quinu, he was trying to be great among them. He bound him and reckoned him among the doomed god. He took away from him the tablet of destinies, which he had no right to. So now, Gurdjieff says, the Fertocosmos, radiation's Meteka zone. Beelzebub Tales 39, 756-7. Thanks to the new particularity of the fifth stopender of the sacred Heptaparapashanak, these emanations issuing from the Holy Sun Absolute began to act at certain definite points of space in the universe upon the ether of Krylno, from which certain concentrations began to be concentrated. These were galaxies. Further, thanks to these factors and also to their own laws of Heptaparapashanak and Triamazikamno, huge concentrations were obtained, which we call second-order stars. So now we're on to day 3, chemical reactions. And this corresponds to the liver in the Gurdjieff Food Octave. And I'm saying the sun's solar factory creates building blocks of organic life. So Genesis 1, 9-13. And God said, "Let the waters under the heaven be gathered together unto one place, and let the dry land appear." And it was so. And God called the dry land earth, and the gathering of the waters called the seas. And God saw that it was good. Genesis 1, 9-13. And God said, "Let the earth bring forth grass, the herb yielding seed, the fruit tree yielding fruit after its kind, whose seed is in itself, upon the earth." And it was so. And the earth brought forth grass, and herb yielding seed after its kind, and the tree yielding fruit, whose seed was in itself after its kind. And God saw that it was good, and the evening and the morning were the third day. And I've also added from Genesis 2:5, and every plant of the field before it was in the earth, and every herb of the field before it grew. For the Lord God had not caused it to rain upon the earth, and there was not a man to till the ground. And this corresponds to Enuma Elish tablets 4b. He made the positions for the great gods. Then Marduk turned back to Tiamat, whom he had rendered helpless. The Lord trampled upon the frame of Tiamat with his merciless mace. He crushed her skull. He cut open the arteries of her blood. He spilled her in two, like a fish for drying. Half of her he set up and made as a cover, heaven. He stretched out the hide, assigned watchman. Then he ordered not to let her waters escape. He crossed heaven. He inspected the firmament. He made it a counterpart to Absu, the dwelling of Nadimad. The Lord measured the construction of Absu. He founded the great sanctuary, the likeness of Ashara, the great sanctuary, the Ashara he had built, and in it heaven. He made Ea, Enlil, and Anu dwell in their holy places. This corresponds to the Gurdjieff Tritocosmos, Radiations, Dynamonozone, Beelzebub's Tales, 39, 757-8. Thanks to the process of the sacred Triamazakamno, thus established, crystallizations of different density gradually began to be formed around each of the second-order suns out of the same prime source, ether or Krilno, and grouping themselves around these newly arisen suns, new concentrations began to take form, as a result of which more new suns were obtained, but this time third-order suns, planets. And now we're on to day 4, Fa, nuclear binding, corresponding to the cerebellum in the food octave. The interaction of positive-negative force found its balance, becoming the laws of the universe, thus controlling the sun, the moon, and the stars. Genesis 1:14-19. And God said, "Let there be lights in the firmament of the heaven to divide the day from the night, and let them be for signs, and for the seasons, and for the days and the years. And let them be for lights in the firmament of the heaven to give light upon the earth." And it was so. And God made 2 great lights, the greater light to rule the day, and the lesser light to rule the night. He made stars also. And God set them in the firmament of the heaven to give light upon the earth, and to rule over day and over the night, and to divide the light from the darkness. And God saw that it was good. And the evening and the morning were the 4th day. And here I have also pulled from Genesis 2:10-14. And a river went out of Eden to water the garden, and from thence it parted, and became into 4 heads. The name of the first was Pison, and that which compasseth the whole land of Havilah, where there is gold. And the gold of that land is good, and there is bdellium, onyx stone. And the name of the second river of Gihon, the Nile, the same that compasses the whole land of Ethiopia. And the name of the third river is Hiddekel, the Tigris. Pison is Ganges, and the 4th river is the Euphrates. And now this is tablet 5 of Enuma Elish. When Marduk had heard the speech of the gods, he was resolved to make artful things. He made positions for the great gods. He set up constellations, the star images. He marked the year, drew its boundaries. He set up 12 months of 3 stars each. After he had laid out the plan for the days of the year, he fixed the position of Nibiru to mark the star relationships. He made the moon appear, entrusted to him the night, and from her 2 eyes he let the Euphrates and the Tigris flow. When you come up from the heaven to make decisions, let your stopping places be here to receive all of you. I shall call its name Babylon, home of the great gods. We shall hold a ceremony ever after within it, and that is the evening rite. So now this corresponds to Gurdjieff microcosmos, radiations, photonozoid. Beelzebub's Tales 39, 760. Smallest, relatively independent formation on the planets, which arose thanks to the new inherency of the fifth stopender of the sacred Heptaparapashnok, and which is the very smallest similarity to the whole, is called microcosmos, atoms and cells. And now we're up to day 5, which is position Soul. Complex organisms. The cerebrum is the corresponding food octave position. DNA experimentally creates 3 brain beings, animals of the sky, sea, and land. Chance and fitness determine survival. So we have Genesis 1:20-23. And God said, Let the waters bring forth abundantly the moving creature that hath life, and fowl that may fly above the earth, in the open firmament of the heaven. And God created great whales, sea monsters, and living creatures that moveth. Waters brought forth abundantly after their kind, and every winged fowl after his kind. And God saw that it was good. And here I moved up day 6. Genesis 22-25, because I thought it was absurd that man, which is in day 6, should have to share with all these other creatures. So God blessed them, saying, Be fruitful and multiply, and fill the waters in the seas, and let the fowl multiply in the earth. And God said, Let the earth bring forth the living creature, after its kind, cattle and creeping thing, and the beast of the earth after its kind. And it was so. And God made the beast of the earth after its kind, and the cattle after its kind, and everything that creepeth upon the earth after its kind. And God saw that it was good. And so here's Genesis 23. And the evening and the morning were the 5th day. So now this is tablet 6 from Enuma Elish. It's 106-119. It talks about animals and black-headed that are cared for. His lordship shall be supreme. He shall have no rival. He shall be the shepherd of the black-headed ones of the land, his creatures. They shall tell of his ways without forgetting. In the future he shall appoint the black-headed ones of his land to serve him. Let the subject people be mindful that their God should be invoked. At his command let him heed their goddesses. Let their gods, their goddesses, be brought food offerings. Let these not be forgotten. Let them sustain their gods. Let their holy places be conspicuous. Let their sanctuaries be well built. Though the black-headed ones of this land be divided as to gods, for us, whatever name we pronounce, he shall be our God. And then this relates to the Urdu Genesis in the Sumerian version. When An, Enlil, and Enki, and Nisarga fashioned the black-headed ones, they had made the small animals that came up out of the earth come from the earth in abundance, and had let there be, as it befits it, gazelles, wild donkeys, and 4-footed beasts in the desert. So I'm associating these black-headed ones to be similar to primitive apes. And so now this compares with Gurdjieff's Tetatocosmos, Radiations Hambelazoid, Beelzebub's Tales 39, 760. These formations of the microcosmos, and which also became concentrated on the planets, this time thanks to the second order cosmic law called mutual attraction of the similar, or tetatocosmos. Now Gurdjieff says that tetatocosmoses are humans, but I'm seeing, if you compare this with the other 2 creations, or you might say it's the primitive people, black-headed people that Sumerians are talking about. So now we're on day 6, law, humans. And this is my made-up Gurdjieff position in the food octave, which I've named harmoniary, which has to do with the endocrine system. And I'm saying with the emergence of mankind, male and female, the potential of service to the Creator and becoming the Creator is possible. And in Genesis 1:26-31, and God said, "Let us make man in our image, after our likeness, and let them have dominion over the fish of the sea, and over the fowl of the air, and over the cattle, and over all the earth, and over every creeping thing that creepeth upon the earth." So God created man in his own image. In image of God created he him. Male and female created he them. And God blessed them, and God said unto them, "Be fruitful and multiply, and replenish the earth, and subdue it, and have dominion over the fish of the sea, and over the fowl of the air, and over every living thing that moveth upon the earth." And God said, "Behold, I have given you every herb bearing seed, which is upon the face of all the earth, and every tree, in which is the fruit of a tree yielding seed. To you it shall be for meat. And to every beast of the earth, and to every fowl of the air, and to everything that creepeth upon the earth, wherein there is life, I have given every green herb for meat." And it was so. And God saw everything that he had made, and behold, it was very good. And the evening and the morning were the 6th day. And I've moved up Genesis 2:6-7. Man, woman is created with the ability to contain a spirit born of air. But there went up a mist from the earth, and watered the whole face of the ground. And the Lord God formed man of the dust of the ground, and breathed into his nostrils the breath of life, and man became a living soul. And I moved this up because this is saying that man and women are created with the ability to contain a spirit born of air. And this seems to be significant in 3 of these creations. You have spirit from God's breath in Genesis, and you have spirit from the blood of the gods and the Gurdjieff Food Octave. Tablet 6. When Marduk had heard the speech of the gods, he was resolved to make artful things. He would tell his idea to Ea. He had thought of it in his heart, and he proposes, "I shall compact blood. I shall cause bones to be. I shall make stand a Lula, a primeval man. Let man be his name. They shall bear the gods' toil, and they shall rest, shall artfully divide the ways of the gods. Then let them be honored as one, but divided in twain." It was Kingu who made war, suborned Tiamat, and drew up for battle. They bound him and held him before Ea. They imposed the punishment upon him and shed his blood. From his blood they, Marduk and Ea, made humankind. And what I see significant here is that Kingu was a god, and they used his blood inside these lulas that they created. And I think this is the spirit inside a human. So going back to what Gurdjieff said, that the previous Cosmos was mankind, I think one might have to redefine mankind as man possessing a spirit. Beelzebub's Tales 39, 763-5. For Mesocosmos, radiations, astroluolution. He defines in the food octave man as a 3-brained being. He has a body which takes food in the stomach. It has lungs which takes air, and it has a sensory system in the mind, which is the 3rd force. And so the further results of the divine attention is in respect to the mentioned Cosmoses consisted in this, that during their serving as apparatuses for the Trago Autoegocrat, the possibility was obtained in them from among the cosmic substances transformed through them, both for the needs of the most great common cosmic sacred Trago Autoegocrat, as well as for the supply of substances expended by them for the process of their own existence, and composed exclusively of cosmic crystallizations, which are derived from the transformations of that planet itself on which the given tetatocosmoses arose. Such results began to be obtained in their common presences under the mentioned conditions as proceeded from the cosmic sources of a higher order, and consequently composed of what is called vibrations of greater vivifyingness, and that would be the spirit in man. Now, from such cosmic results, exactly similar forms began to be coded in their common presences, at first from the common substances, metekizoin, i.e. from the substances transformed from the sun and other planets of the solar system, within the limits of which the given tetatocosmoses had the place of their arising, in which cosmic substances reach every planet through the radiations of the said cosmic concentrations. By this way, the common presences of certain tetatocosmoses began beforehand to be composed of two different independent formations arisen from two entirely different cosmic sources, and these began to have a joint existence, as if one were placed within the other, and began to call them beings, which meant two-natured, and these same sacred coatings alone began to be called bodies Kesjan, or spirit. And now we're up to day 7, procreation, the sexual center of the Gurdjieff Food Octave. It is the tree of the knowledge of good and evil. It is sex, that is day 7. Male and female are now like gods, having procreation, knowing in the biblical sense, who can create other humans by completing the creation octave. Genesis 2, 16, 17, 18, 21, 22. And the Lord God took the man and put him in the Garden of Eden to dress it and to keep it. And the Lord God commanded the man, saying, Of every tree of the garden thou mayest freely eat, but of the tree of the knowledge of good and evil thou shalt not eat of it, for in the day that thou shalt eatest thereof thou shalt surely die. And the Lord God said, It is not good for that man should be alone. I shall make an helpmate for him. And the Lord God created a deep sleep to fall upon Adam, and he slept, and he took one of his ribs, and closed up the flesh instead thereof. And the rib which the Lord God had taken from man made he woman, and brought her unto the man. In Genesis 3, 1-7. Now the serpent was more subtle than any beast in the field which the Lord God had made. And he said unto the woman, Yea, hath God said, Thou shalt not eat of every tree of the garden? And the woman said unto the serpent, We may eat of the fruit of the trees of the garden, but of the fruit of the tree which is in the midst of the garden, God hath said, Ye shall not eat of it, neither shall ye touch it, lest ye die. And the serpent said unto the woman, Ye shall not surely die, for God doth know that in the day ye eat thereof, then your eyes shall be opened, and you shall be as gods, knowing good and evil. And when the woman saw that the tree was good for food, and that it was pleasant to the eyes, and a tree to be desired to make one wise, she took of the fruit thereof, and did eat, and also gave unto her husband with her, and he did eat. And the eyes of them were opened, and they knew that they were naked, symbolic of the need to build a spirit and a soul. And the Sumerian text says, Enki and Ninki create Adapa. Initially, human beings were unable to reproduce of their own, and they were later modified with the help of Enki and Ninki. Thus, Adapa was created as a fully functional and independent human being. Now, in the Epic of Gilgamesh, Tablet 1, Enkidu, a black-headed one, is tricked into having sex with a woman and becomes a man, Lula. As a companion of Gilgamesh, he is symbolic of feeling growing into emotion and building his spirit. So now we are to the Gurdjieff section, and it's macrocosmos, radiations, polaritherapal. And here is the part where mankind is able to create a soul. Beelzebub's Tales 39, 791. Only after this are the cosmic substances which enter being apparatuses for the purpose of evolution, that is, for the possibility of passing the lower midland of the fundamental cosmic exchange of substances, transformed into that definite totality of cosmic substances, which transformation is the lot of all beings in general, and also of our contemporary three-brained beings, which breed on the planet Earth in particular, for the automatic justification and the sense and aim of their existence, and this totality of cosmic substances is everywhere called exioheri. He's referring to the sexual center. When in this new part of these two-natured formations, everything corresponding was acquired, and when all that functioning which is proper to such cosmic arisings to have was finally established, then these same new formations in their turn, on exactly the same basis in the first case, and also under the conditions of certain kind of change of functioning, began to absorb and assimilate in themselves such cosmic substances as had their arising immediately from the most holy Son, Thaumatologos, and similarities of the third kind began to be coded in them, which are the highest sacred parts of beings, which we now call higher beings, soul. So going back to Genesis, we have the knowledge of good and evil, and although that's a euphemism for sex, it also means that good and evil can be used to create a conscience, and this conscience can be the base of their spirit and soul, as Gurdjieff shows. And going back to the food octave of Gurdjieff, this is position T, which is the step beyond the highest Do, and this is the sexual center. So the point is, you can use that sexual energy to either produce a new human being or to build a soul. So now we're on the final day 8, the higher Do, the completed creation, completed human. This is praising the Creator, the existence of the Source, the Father and Mother. Son, Sophia, maintains all existence, and the equivalent of Marduk, the Supreme God. Genesis 2, 1-3, and here is the statement of the 8th day. God ended his work which he had made, and he rested on the 7th day, the 8th day, and from all that his work he had made. Thus the heavens and the earth were finished, and all the host of them, and God blessed the 8th day, and sanctified it, because in it he had rested from all his work which God created and made. And in tablet 6b, Enuma Elish, he praises the gods' names and functions. God 1 is Marduk, of course, who at his birth was named by his forefather, Anu, who rescued the gods, his forefathers, in distress. And God 2 is Maruka. Shall he be the God who created them, humankind, who granted thereby the Anunnaki gods contentment, who let the Igigi gods rest. And tablet 7 continues praising God's names. It begins with God 10, Azir, grantor of arable land, who established irrigated fields, creator of grain and flax, who causes vegetation to spring up. The great gods named his 50 names. The 50, they made his position supreme. And now this corresponds to Gurdjieff, Beelzebub's Tales 39, 760-1. Then also our cherubim gave names, also existing until now, to the emanations and radiations existing from all the cosmoses of the different scales, by means of which the process of the most great cosmic Trago-Auto-Ecocrat proceeds, and all the results issuing from all the cosmic sources, great and small, taken together, were also then named by them common cosmic and Sanbalazar. Concerning this common cosmic and Sanbalazar, present-day objective science has that the formula of everything issuing from everything again, entering into everything. And I'm including the footnotes in the notes of this essay. I hope this is all illuminating as much to you as it was to me. Genesis and Enuma, Elish, and the difficulty of Beelzebub's tales makes it almost impossible to extract what's really important about creation, that it happened in 7 stages, and the completion being the 8th stage. And the 8th, of course, is that which we need to reach in our existence. So God is resting on the 8th day, but you, as a human, need to achieve that rest by following the growth that's necessary within yourself to achieve a spirit and a soul. Thank you.